Okay. Looks like we're live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society Australia live stream, which goes live every single day, at least once a day, which is always fun. And I get to do this every single night, which is something I enjoy doing. And I enjoy the fact that you guys enjoy it as well and get to tune in and have a bit of fun talking with me, having a chat, and taking along a ride and meeting interesting people, which is what it's all about. And I should say, my name's Matt Bailey. I'm sure you know that by now. I'm the National Ambassador for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society here in Australia. I am joined this evening, my time, or this morning, his time, by Kai Ivalo, who is the Spirits Director, Spirits Manager, Marketing and Spirits Director for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society Global. He's going to be taking your questions as we go along, and we're going to have a bit of a chat about his journey. Welcome, Kai. Good to see you.
Hi there, Matt. How are you doing?
Good to see you, and thanks for joining in. I think you're in a very familiar room where you are there.
Yep, I used this opportunity to get myself out of the house and actually come into the vaults.
Very nice.
You can see the fabled ceiling behind me because the camera angle on my laptop. But yeah, I'm in the vaults. It's a bit weird because I am literally the only person in here at the moment. There's one person downstairs, which is where my office would normally be. But actually, do you know what? As soon as I rolled into the courtyard, it was kind of fantastic. It's nice to see the place, nice to sort of have a semblance of normalcy as well.
Yeah. Does it feel weird being one of two people in the whole vaults at the moment?
Yeah, that's that rarely happens. It's normally such a buzzing place. I mean, even when it's quiet, it's got a nice kind of vibe and atmosphere to it. If I was what do you call it? Somebody who worried about such things, there are great stories of ghosts around the vaults. And actually, many years ago, we actually had a visit by the Paranormal Society, who came and stayed the night, and they asked us not to tell them anything about any issues or sightings or feelings, and then pointed out two areas in the building, one which is diagonally opposite from where I am. I'm not sitting there for obvious reasons. And then one actually in the tasting room, and they said, oh, there's a presence in here, which oddly enough does correlate with various stories we've heard in the past, if you believe in that sort of thing. But there you go.
Yeah, well, for any members who believe in paranormal activity, of course, you heard it here first. There might be some ghosts next time you visit. There's some, Alex Morse pipes in by saying, it's Kai with an ISO beard.
Yes.
Yes, that's true. We're both actually rocking a bit of ISO beard at the moment, so there you go.
Yeah, it's 3 months in and my wife still doesn't like it.
Well. Dean Jackson says hi to you both and cheers. Good to see you, Dean.
Right, yeah. No, yeah, in fact, Dean's been here before, I'm sure.
Yeah, indeed. And Rob Akers asks how many would normally be in at that time of morning anyway.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but you'd have it doesn't normally open until 11 o'clock in the morning, and we're just after 10 o'clock. But at least you'd have, our offices are below on the ground floor, so at least you'd have a bunch of people in there, and you might have, the crew setting up here and all the rest of it. So you'd still have a kind of hubble bubble and buzz going on in the morning.
And Rob, of course, finishes up by saying the place is full of spirits for sure. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Okay. Sure. So, Kai, we might start at the beginning then. I had some questions I want to ask you, and we could take us on a bit of a journey with this. I want to start with sort of the question about your journey. And the reason I want to ask that is because in my travels, I am one of the most asked questions I get is, wow, this looks really cool. How do you become a whiskey ambassador? How do you even get into whiskey? I'm going to turn that sort of question onto you. I mean, where was your start in whiskey, in great spirits, and a bit of a historical rundown, if you like, of where this all came from?
Yeah, I can go back quite far. I mean, I am a lifelong whiskey enthusiast. So, even when I was a student in Aberdeen in the late 80s, I got introduced to malt whiskey, so it's always been something of interest to me. The first half of my career was working in advertising and marketing agencies. And my first encounter with the society would have been, properly would have been something like 1998. when the agency I was working for hired the tasting room. I'm pointing because it's just over there, to prepare a pitch for the Macallan, and we won the account. And then I had a nice but relatively short time, about a year or so, working with the Macallan, which wasn't bad. And then a few years later, I kind of fell out of love with the world of advertising and what have you. And I was looking for a career change. And it was 2004. Glenmorangie had just taken over the society, had just bought it. And they decided that they needed a marketing person. And I applied for the job and I got it. And it was just right time, right place, right level of interest. So I ticked a number of different boxes, really, is how it came about.
And it's been since 2004 till now, so it's a fair stint already. That's good.
Yeah, and one of the things that I enjoyed in the first half of my career, if I can now look at it like that, was variety. Always doing something different, different challenges and what have you. I guess there's a lot of variety in what we do here. That's what keeps me interested. It's a very stimulating environment. I like the direct contact with members because you can get feedback directly. What what people are interested in. It's a great product. I think first half of my career I was making, if the phrase works, trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Whereas now I've got a fantastic product to work with, so I don't have that problem at all.
Well, that's an interesting comment. The silk purse out of a what was it? What are you? Sorry,
silk purse out of a sow's ear. It's silk a bit like that kind of phrase.
I don't think many Aussies would have heard that phrase, maybe, but I like it. In that context, that's a really interesting sort of segue into sort of what's changed in the society since then, since you've started there, because I've often had the opportunity to talk about some of that like Glenmorangie history, but you've lived it and you've sort of seen it. And I came in at the society right at the end of that period in sort of 2015.
Yeah, it's quite funny looking back at it now, because not very much changed for 10 years. During that period, whereas a lot of change has taken place in the last 5 years in terms of investment and enthusiasm and really trying to move things on and make the most of the society and the membership experience. There are many stories and I still haven't got to the bottom of it as to why did Glenmorangie buy the society. I don't believe that the society was looking to be bought. But they were approached, an offer was made, and they had to put it to the shareholders, and the shareholders went, "Yeah, we'll go with that," which is fair enough. And there was a lot of really good things that happened for the society at the time. We just opened Queen Street in I think April or May of 2004. So there was some more support that came in that. Glenmorangie used it quite a lot for entertainment as well, which was great. And we had access to Glenmorangie's third-party casks, which was a treasure trove. I mean, you look back at it now, and it's just, it's a moment in time when you would trip over casks of great age and quality and variety and what have you. So we were very fortunate that we had that period and that access, and then all of the support that you get from a big organization. But then, of course, Glenmorangie got taken over by Moet Hennessy. And we didn't really fit into that whole structure. We were exempt from it. I didn't have to fly to Paris and give presentations or anything like that, which was great. I mean, we were so small in the scheme of things. But it did restrict, some of the creativity, some of the initiatives that we wanted to do. And I guess at that stage, fair play to Glenmorangie. They realized that and went, guys, to myself and the then managing director at the time, they said, what would be the best solution for the society going forward? Can you please go away and have a think about it and come and talk to us? And cut a long story short, it ended up being saying, let's go back into private ownership with individual shareholders, which is what
just around 2015 or so, wasn't it?
Yeah, just at the end of March 2015. It's quite funny because I was actually in Australia in early March 2015, meeting lots of people, knowing what was going on, but unable to tell anybody, what was around which was a bit of a shame. But yeah, and then from there on in, things just became relatively speaking ballistic in terms of the opportunities. I mean, we made a few mistakes in the rush to to get on and do things, but we learned a lot, and we've had a hell of a lot of support, and we've I think we've put ourselves in a phenomenal position going forward.
There's a lot of people tuning in just now, as well as when we just started 10 minutes ago. So just a big shout out to everyone tuning in. I'm chatting tonight, or in his case, this morning, for Kai Ivalo, who is our spirits and marketing director of SMWS Global. So it's a good opportunity for you to ask some questions and get some and throw some curveballs at him, because he loves that. And I'm just kidding. It's a wind up. Okay, but just following on from your last point, you said that there's and so March-ish, sort of late March 2015. What have you seen then from your perspective of the last 5 years of what's happened at the society and how that's changed?
I think in the first instance, we stock. We've invested a huge amount of money in whiskey casks, stocks that we have in our own warehouse in Glasgow, and around 50 different warehouses around Scotland, and now actually whiskies in other countries as well. In terms of wood, so we've the last few years I've been traveling to cooperages in France, Spain, Kentucky, here as well, probably somewhere else. And with the investment of wood quality has been fantastic. I think we are also looking increasingly at the membership experience. We are a members club first and foremost. So what can we do for our members over and above just the whiskey? I think what you're doing there, Matt, with your daily shows and member engagement, and making members feel like they're part of this, and entertaining and all the rest of it. That's absolutely the direction that we want to be traveling in. Doing more of that. I think we've learned a lot. The silver lining from the last 3 months will be the fact that we've learned a lot how to do digital entertainment, and we now have some really big ambitions to move that forward. I think also there's been product innovation. So we've tried some of our other spirits that we've brought in, the cognac, rum, Armagnac being one of my favorites really. Even the barrel-aged gins, also the experimental blended malts, which was in fact an idea I put to the Glenmorangie executive in 2011. Got told to go away, but we resurrected that, and I was in fact I ran into Bill Lumsden from Glenmorangie, the master blender and distiller. Bill's been a wonderful supporter of us all the years. I ran into him a few years ago, just after Exotic Cargo won the double gold at San Francisco Wine and Spirits competition, and I reminded him of that meeting where we got told that we weren't allowed to do this, and he said, "Oh no, I was a big supporter of you doing that," which I know he was. And to be fair to Glenmorangie, it was a pain in the neck for them to have done that. But anyway, we've had that freedom and latitude to do all of those things, which has been fantastic. I probably missed loads of.
I sure hope that Bill followed up with some nasty joke about leprechauns and AIDS or something. The usual sort of Bill level of joke that would have followed, which we always appreciate.
I couldn't possibly say.
And Alex Moore says here on the Armagnac, he's right. We love the society Armagnacs that we get here as well. The A codes, even the C codes. We love the cognacs we get every so often as well. We've got a few coming through, which is great. And is that something that you've obviously had quite a keen influence on in terms of other spirits?
Yeah, well, we wanted to, I mean, right from the beginning, this is like, if you look back, I mean, we've done, before I even joined, we'd done an Armagnac, we'd done rums, we'd done, bourbon, we'd done English cider apple brandy, which is again one of my favorites. If you've ever tracked down a bottle of that, that is phenomenal. So it was just a case of saying, okay, what else can we do that comes from primarily pot still distilled spirits that are aged in oak, and see where we go. So we've had a bit of an exploration in there. I think that some have worked better than others in different parts of the world. I'm pleased to hear you guys like the cognac. it's not been as popular elsewhere, but the Armagnac for sure has been fantastic.
I wouldn't say it's been hugely popular. But it's certainly, there's certainly interest because it's a curio. It's and it's a focus on flavor in terms of something a bit different.
And I think that's probably where we'll end up, is that, you know, we'll there'll be a few casks every year of that being released, but not huge volumes.
Well, there's a great question here upon your previous comment from member Darren. G'day, Darren, up in Queensland. He says, hi, Matt and Kai. Can you ask Kai what changed it from a sow's ear into the awesome thing it is today? Management, access to better whiskey, question mark.
I don't think the society was ever a sow's ear in the past. I think my analogy there was having gone from the world of advertising to the society was the change. Certainly what's happened in the last 5 years, I'd say, has been management related. But, you know, obviously we take a lot of inspiration from the members and lots of ideas that come through from them, and we've got that direct relationship with members, unlike, you know, many other organizations. And I think just years and years of pent up creativity and ideas. You know, it's a very nice, you know, the society is a lovely organization to be part of. It's almost better organization to work at, which, you know, you'll know yourself, Matt. And we've got it's not very hierarchical, as you would hope. And it means lots of people bring ideas to the party. And when the society gets under their skin, you know, there are ideas firing around everywhere. So we never have a shortage of ideas at all.
I think something that has always been intriguing about sort of your role, and which I want to dig into a bit here, is that we've sort of just touched on now some of the, you know, as you say, pent up creativity and ideas that are now being able to come to fruition over the last few years, which we've seen, which have been fantastic, like, you know, exploration to other spirits, the Heresy series, even Society Gin, which I featured on Monday night, which is just fantastic. Things like that, which is exciting. What does the spirit side of your role as a day-to-day look like? How does that sort of play out for you?
Various different things. It can be one extreme to another, to be honest. It can be stock planning. So Ewan and I kind of knee deep in Excel spreadsheets and all the rest of it, trying to work out, you know, what do we need to buy? When do we need to do it? Yesterday, for example, you know, the two of us were looking at wood budgets and what do we need to, you know, buy, you know, when can it get, you know, filled or, you know, the casks re-racked, those kind of things. So there's a lot of planning time in there. There's a lot of meetings under normal circumstances. That's a bit difficult, and that's all put on hold at the moment. It's very much a relationship business, right through to, you know, next week I've got to go to the warehouse to nose a container load of sherry hogsheads that are coming in from Spain before we fill them, mainly because Ewan can't get there because of public transport issues, and it gives me an opportunity to jump on my motorcycle and head over to Glasgow and nose some casks. So it is incredibly diverse. I mean, what the process is everything from, you know, we're trying to work out, you know, in future how much demand and interest is there. So what stock do we need in the stock model? What do we want to buy? When do we want to buy it? So we don't have limitless funds. So what are we focusing on this year that we want to spend our money on next year going forward? What does the profile of our stock look like in terms of flavor and cask diversity, and therefore the impact of wood purchases? Right through to meetings, negotiations, buying, you know, the administration of getting the casks in, the maturation process and monitoring, tasting panel selection, and then right through to, you know, selection for bottling, and then the production bottling process as well. So it's I will get involved at every stage, but there are other people who are mostly doing the work, if I'm honest about it, in each of those areas.
So you heard it here first, folks. There's an extremely glamorous part to Kai's role, which includes Excel spreadsheets. So we're also going to just take some of the questions coming through here as well. Joel Bradbury asks a really interesting question. From your experience, Kai, how do you market whiskey that has no names, he says? As in, like, how do you find the challenge of marketing a whiskey that's not relying on the brand. We're relying on other factors. And how does that look to you?
It really, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, that's right at the heart of the society. And if we were to put the names on the bottles, it would make life an awful lot easier. But I think it would also lose some of the magic as to who we are and what we're about. And I think that, the reasons for the cask coding, system are twofold. One, because it was the system that Pip Hill set up to protect, the trademarks of the distilleries and the companies that were selling to us. And that's still very much a requirement for many of the people that we're buying stock from. That's a massive reassurance for them when they know that we're not going to do that, and we're not going to put the names in marketing literature or anything like that. Yeah. But the other thing is, because our core of what we do is single cask strength Scotch malt whiskey, is we've always wanted members to come at it from an objective stance. Evaluate what's in the glass in front of you rather than by what its name is and what you expect it to taste like, because of your experience and understanding of the proprietary and expressions and house styles. So I think once you get to that stage, you recognize what the value that's in there. And I think that what we've tried to do is to invest a lot of effort in the fact that we are a club. We have this tasting panel that will, take the risk factor out of it, if you like, for you, because that it's gone through the panel. That's why we're entering awards, is to show people that don't take our word for it. You can see what these judging panels think of what we're producing as well, so that gives another layer of reassurance. That's why we do the tasting notes to give that, and then that's why we then layer in things like flavor profiling to help members select. So I very much appreciate that from a marketing point of view. The coding system is a pain in the proverbial, but it's our DNA. It's who we are. It's what we're about, and it makes us work harder, and it makes us take a different approach. And we are different. We've been different since birth in the way that we approach whiskey, and I think that's an important part of the society and what makes us interesting and unusual.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as we always say to our members locally, it's start with the flavor profiles, start with the focus on flavor, and move sort of across from there, and then look at tasting notes, and then look at and I always say make the code the last decision, because you can often miss out on some great whiskeys, as I like to call them, sleepers on outturns, where people are hunting the superstar codes and they see these things that are might be an oily and coastal from a distillery that is not very well known for its oily and coastal or otherwise.
I mean, you're absolutely right, and the nature of what I'm doing is I'm really seeing what's being released in a current outturn or a next outturn, because my involvement would have been months previous to that. So actually, one of the things I personally quite like doing, when I get the opportunity, is even coming up here to the bar and talking to the bartenders here and saying, guys, what do you reckon? What do you like? What do you rate? Or what are you getting feedback on? And then trying that and going, all right, okay, that's interesting how other people are perceiving it.
Especially if when you first tasted it, it was out of a cask or a cask sample, versus, as you say, months and months later in a bottled form. Is kind of like it's the same whiskey, but there are differences.
Yeah, and I don't taste a fraction of what gets bottled. The panel. I don't think I could. One person could humanly do that. The panel will do that. Ewan probably, will definitely tries more of the whiskies than I do. He also tends to line me up for the weird and wonderful stuff. Yeah. The two of us will be in the lab, and usually it was Thursday morning 8:30. I tend to prefer sampling first thing in the morning because my palate is cleaner and mental faculties are stronger at that time of morning. So often he'll have the weird and wonderful crew of samples in there, and we go through those.
So no spiced meats and chilies for breakfast?
No, absolutely not. No, I think our bland Scottish breakfast is perfect for that.
Perfect. Of course, lots of comments, people saying send more A's, as in Armagnacs, send more B's, bourbons, etc. Yes. And there's a comment here from Andrew Durbidge. He says, evening, Matt, evening, Kai. I'm leaving the office now and heading home in my car, so we'll sadly miss all of this and can't join in live. but we'll watch tomorrow. Very good of you to join us, Kai. Keep up the good work.
Not at all. You're welcome. Good to hear from Andrew.
And of course, there's some more questions coming in, which we'll just jump on before I head back into the main questions here. Joel, I might come back to that one. And there's a question here from Andy Davis who says, question for Kai. Do you know the cause or scarcity of supply, or apparently, of distillery codes 27126114? They're all one distillery. Ask him if he could undertake to the best of his ability what it takes to get more of their product available to society members, in maybe even some Glengyle in future. More basically summed up as, hey, maybe some more Campbelltown.
Yeah, you know what? The one thing I've learned in this game is you need to be tenacious and you need to take a long-term view. So, you know, I think that we are, if I'm going to be honest, we will struggle at the moment with sourcing whiskey from there. But never say never. And this is down to some organizations, it'll be down to, you know, change of the guard. So it might be the bosses there, or, you know, the marketing teams have got products that they want to try to make more use of the stocks they've got, which is fair enough. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, then, you know, suddenly somebody gives you a call and says, we've got stock of X years old because we've just bottled everything that we needed for the age statement, and we've got excess, and we quite so much for overaging. And then all of a sudden you weren't expecting it, and you've just been offered a parcel of, you know, of aged stock. So, you know, I guess I spend a lot of time building relationships in the industry, and being seen in, you know, different meetings and events and what have you, and being part of that, and just having a chat. And there are a few people in the industry, you know, who are not selling to us at the moment, but we're in very good friendly terms. And, you know, I'm working towards the day when they'll suddenly go, do you know what? It's going to be worth working with these guys because of the, you know, their reputation, and for the fact that we trust them, and the fact that they do a great thing, and, you know, they are category ambassadors for the whole of Scotch malt whiskey. So I think, you know, those are all things that play into it. Increasingly, though, back to what I was talking about earlier on about stock modeling, is, you know, increasingly we are moving towards buying younger and younger stock and maturing it ourselves, rather than buying mature stock that's ready to go. And so in, you know, the next few years' time, I would hope to be in a position, and obviously this year's kind of screwed things up a bit in that respect, but I would hope that we could get to a position where the bulk of what we're focusing on is 0 to 3 year old stock. And then things start to become much easier, because you can turn around to a distillery and say, I'd like to buy some new make spirit, and you're essentially just adding on to, you know, their production run. And it becomes a very different discussion from, I'd like to buy mature spirit, which might be earmarked for, you know, for stock, or, you know, carries a different value, or a number of different other challenges in there. So I think, you know, I keep an old phrase that I've been saying for a long time is, you know, what we have today, we didn't have yesterday. And what we have today, you know, we probably won't have tomorrow, but we'll have something else. You know, it's constantly changing, and that's part of, if you like, the, you know, the magic of what we do is, you know, we focus on variety and diversity in terms of the offerings, so that, you know, the members at least are getting different styles of whiskies in there, even though that, you know, the distilleries and providers might change over a period of time. Yeah, no, those guys are certainly ones that would be near the top of my list if we could get over there.
Yeah, of course. I think top of many people's lists is a bit of a cult-like status to them. There was a few comments, and there was a question about new make and sourcing new make versus mature stock. I think that sort of answers that question there as well. I can't scroll back far enough to see who asked that one. And a comment from Rob Akers, who says, really appreciate the society's willingness to do great things with non-malts and malt blends. Exploration of flavor, he writes, which is exactly right. It's exploration of flavor, and it's, as Kai said, it's letting the creativity flow and actually creating some interesting things out of it.
Yeah.
Dave, Samuel, Victoria, everyone joining in. Yep, thank you.
I'd say I'd be keen on that point with things like the experimental series is getting feedback. Where should we go next? I mean, we've obviously got a pipeline of ideas, which Ewan would kill me if I mentioned any of them. But where should we go next? We've deliberately decided not to create a kind of like a sub brand that recurs. So we don't have a continuing exotic cargo or old fashioned or anything like that. We've created new styles and we've moved it forward. Is that the right thing for us to be doing? Is that what members want? We run about 4 of these bottles a year at the moment, 4 or 5. Do members want more? Is that about the right size? It'd be good to get some more feedback on where we're going with this one, because we are still in experimental, discovery mode, I guess, with it.
Yeah. There was actually Joel that even whilst you've been saying that, Joel said a bit of feedback. I do love the coding system and have bought 5 whiskies now, not knowing what they were. He's only been a member since February. But when spending, say, over 220, which would be, I do like to know where the spirit has come from. And I do find myself going to the web to find out the distillery. I don't know if that even matters, but it's just a thought. It does seem like the SMWS is slanted to the more educated whiskey drinker. And what does the SMWS do to make it more appealing to the novice whiskey drinker?
Good question. I mean, that's something that the obvious answer to that one is our people. So the more opportunities, and at the moment, so somebody who's joined in February has not really seen the society in full flight and action in that respect. Although you've been doing a grand job there,
appreciate
Matt,
it.
with your daily shows, if I can call them that. But obviously, I think for new members, at the moment, the most you're going to get out of that, or new whiskey drinkers, is coming along to tastings, speaking to our ambassadors, to the guys on the phone, asking for advice, because it really isn't just a society for well-established malt whiskey enthusiasts that know a lot. That's definitely something I've seen change. It probably was more like that when I joined, back in 2004. But now we are seeing people who are more adventurously minded, who are saying, I've tried a few whiskeys, I'm quite keen to find out more, tell me what to do. So I think going forward, a lesson again that we've learned in the last 3 months is that we need to be able to offer more digitally. So what we're going to be exploring is certainly more virtual and digital tastings. So for people who can't come to places like this, for example, but also who maybe can't come to a tasting event that's happening. So we'll want to look at doing those, potentially even private whiskey tastings digitally. We've done some of those here in the UK. John McShane, our ambassador, has done a few of those. But also starting to look at ways in which we can engage members more digitally. So we're currently kicking around ideas for things like, I think the technical parlance is an engagement platform, but you might have called a forum for members to come in, but also things like education programs. So starting to create a series of videos or indeed sessions that are more geared towards people who want to start building up their knowledge. As you all know, Matt, we've been investing quite a lot of time during the lockdown period with our own ambassadors on training and development, and it's been amazing. The output that we've put in, and the guests.
It's incredible, and even just for members watching along in Australia, like with the amount of that the SMWS in the UK have been doing on this front, that we are going to translate and make sense of for local membership is incredible. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, and so the obvious next step for that is to say, okay, now how do we start? Just as you've said, turn that into something that we can offer to members. But the short answer to that one is come along, see us in action, and come and have a chat to the ambassadors, to your fellow members. There's a lot of members there with a lot of good knowledge that would be delighted to get involved and answer questions as well.
Yeah, indeed. Back to our regular programmed questions just for a moment. So there's something that members certainly see, and I certainly see in just about every single issue of Unfiltered, and that's envious photos of you traveling around the world, visiting amazing distilleries, and of course, often critical assessment of their spirit and of their casks, and whether that be a cognac distillery or Scotch whiskey distillery, whatever it is. What, in your take, has been one of the most awe-inspiring or just uniquely just strange and interesting distilleries you've ever visited in your travels?
Wow. Okay. Quite a few for various different reasons. If I quickly run through a few of them, Dalmunach on Speyside, on the site of the old Imperial Distillery, which Chivas Pernod built, not open to the public, but you sit there and you go inside it and you go, wow. I mean, this is a cathedral of whiskey. It's a huge, a distillery, but beautifully done. So that's one. Mortlach, because I still can't get my head around.
I don't think anyone can. I'm sure it's about 3 people on Earth who can wrap their head around the 2.81 repeated distillation, or whatever it is.
One of the people on Earth that can do that is Matt Hoffman from Westland in Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
So because they use a similar system, which he once explained to me when I was very jet lagged. So that didn't work either.
Big shout out to Matt Hoffman, by the way, who recorded a video just for Society members in Australia when we launched with him. That was fantastic. Thank you again, Matt.
And Balcones in Texas.
Yeah, okay.
They're in an old storage warehouse, which is huge. It's Texas. They're Texans. It's just outrageously cool. But they have the weirdest still set up there, because when they were in their old distillery, they had to have super long line arms to fit into the, so at the top of the still, it's the arm that comes off that before you get to the condenser. I don't know why I'm waving my hands around, but anyway. When they moved to this new ex storage warehouse, they didn't have the space in the same way, but they wanted to keep the same process. So and they have got Forsyth stills, so one's made in Scotland. So they've actually got what's called a helical line arm, so it twists up.
What?
It looks like big copper springs sitting on the top of the stills, and I think they must just love everybody's faces when they walk around the corner and see these things. Jared Himstead, the master distiller there, then told me that he hadn't quite realised the price of copper when Forsyth had explained that this was the route that they were going to go down. So I think it cost them a few quid. Those have been some of the ones that have stuck in my mind. But little things like I live in the Scottish borders, so about 25 miles south of here. And for years, the lowlands, borders has had no traditional or history of distilling. And in fact, I took the opportunity to commission a story for Unfiltered many years ago to look into the history of that and why that was the case. So when Borders Distillery in Hawick opened up a couple of years back, for me, that was it was wonderful to have a local distillery to open up. So that's a nice wee one. Right through to possibly arguably the best view from any distillery, which I had the pleasure to see in March, just before all of the nonsense happened, which was in the Isle of Raasay, which was in the last issue of Unfiltered, I think. That story, just stunning, wonderful. If once all of this is over and done with, and people are traveling and looking for somewhere interesting to go to Skye, go to Raasay. It is absolutely mind-blowing. But there's been loads. I've been extremely fortunate to visit many of these places and meet wonderful people that are involved in the whole process.
And I think you may have given some clues into some of the distilleries who might see codes for in the future there, which is well maybe if you're visiting them, I'm just gonna go out on a whim on that one.
There you go. I told you I'm out of touch with release timings.
Yeah, well, true. Okay, so that's I think we'll probably leave it there for now, as we want to cap in about 40-ish minutes, and I really appreciate you taking the time to catch up with this, Kai. And by the way, I've just learnt again how to say that word, hoik, because for those who watched on Monday night and know the way it's spelt and the way that I said it from that gin that I was featuring, GN 3.6, I said Horwick. It is not Horwick, it is hoik, and I've learnt that the hard way. So thanks to Susie and our membership services team, and thanks to Kai for both of you getting it right and me not. There you go.
You have to go for it. You have to absolutely commit to saying it.
Hoik. I've got it. I've got it. And Joel is also asking a whole bunch of questions, which we won't get to this time, Joel, but we will. I'll get to those questions separately, I promise. And I want to thank Kai once more for joining us tonight. Thank you, Kai.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Anytime, just give me a shout. Be delighted to.
Would love to have you on again. That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to have you on again. So thank you so much. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, members, friends, guests, we'll be back on tomorrow night. You can watch me destroy 3 cocktails tomorrow night, courtesy of I'm joining Sam Lucardi, who is probably Australia's youngest brand ambassador. I'm going to call him that until I know of anyone younger working in the game. And he's going to mix up some McHenry's gins. I'm going to mix up some Hoik gin from the SMWS, and we're going to see how far along we get before I really do destroy a gimlet. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you again, Kai, for being a part of it. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Kai, don't go anywhere. I'll catch you members all. I'll see you all tomorrow night. Thank you so much.